Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new rankings video. So today I'm going to be ranking every single alteration for Hammer. Now Hammer has a total of 11 alterations for the turret. So I think my list should hopefully narrow down which alteration you're going to end up spending your money on. But without further ado, let's get straight into the list. So the number 11 spot is going to go to Adrenaline. Now my biggest problem with Adrenaline is you don't really see a difference in damage when you're low health and high health. I've tested it out multiple times and the damage just stays super consistent at 1. So Adrenaline feels like you actually have no alteration on as compared to actually using one. And not only that, it's actually kind of expensive for what you get. So overall this alteration doesn't do much, so that's why it's going to be in our last place spot. Now the number 10 spot is going to go to High Capacity Ammo Clip. Now this alteration gives you 5 bullets instead of 3, but now that Hammer can reload super fast, I really don't see having 5 clips really necessary. Sure, maybe a year ago back when Hammer didn't reload as fast, it was more necessary, but since Hammer can reload super fast and you really don't need 5 bullets to kill someone depending on how many supplies they have or you have, it's just kind of a useless alteration that's not worth the price that you have to pay to get it. So that's why it's going to be at our number 10 spot. Now the number 9 spot is going to unfortunately go to Duplet. Duplet was one of the first Hammer alterations that really was one of the best alterations in the game. I remember when it first came out, everyone was rocking this thing. It was not only fun to use, but it was also super overpowered to use. But now with all the balance changes, Duplet really doesn't shine nearly as much as it used to. Not only is it super hard to get kills at distance, you have to play it super smart because once you use those 2 bullets, you have to wait a few seconds before you can shoot again. Now I wish I didn't have to place it this low on the list. That's why it's going to go in our number 9 spot. So number 8 spot's going to go to the Blunderbuss alteration. Now before this video, I didn't really use this alteration all that much. But using it, trying to film this video, it was really fun. Now this only has 1 shot per clip, but the shot does an insane amount of damage. Each shot does around 2,000 to 3,000 damage, which can 2-shot basically anyone even if they have double armor. Even when someone has protection against Hammer, it still does a really good amount of damage. Now the biggest drawback is of course you only have 1 bullet per ammo clip. This means that you have to play your fights a lot differently compared to normal Hammer. You can't be pushing into the base as much as you would with another alteration like Slugger or Dragon Breath. So that's why it's going to be our number 8 spot. The number 7 spot is going to be Dragon's Breath. The reason this is so low on the list instead of being number 1 or number 2 is that you don't always get fire damage for each shot you take. There's only about a 20 to 30% chance that the fire effect is gonna go onto a person you shoot, which brings down the overall damage of the turret by a lot. Now don't get me wrong, this alteration is still really good. Being able to do that extra 1,000 damage with the fire effect can be the difference between you losing or winning a battle. Overall, this alteration is not only fun to use, but it's a really balanced and good to use alteration. That's why it's gonna be number 7 on the list. Our number 6 spot is gonna be Adaptive Reload. Now if you asked me a year ago, I would call this number 1. With the balance changes and the new alterations that were added for Hammer, it really has lost its placement on the list. Now it's still a really good alteration. Being able to shoot infinitely depending on if you keep killing people is a really helpful tool when you're in someone's base. Back when I made a video calling this the number 1 alteration, it really was. So overall, it's an awesome alteration. It's both fun and useful in a lot of circumstances, and that's why it's going to be number 6 on the list. Number 5 on the list is going to be the Slugger alteration. Now Slugger, Viking, and Booster Drone is one of the most overpowered combos that you can use in the game right now. It's probably the best alteration that wasn't added very recently, and it's also very useful in every circumstance. Slugger allows for a lot of long range play and short range play, and with the tight pellet spread, you can basically hit anyone for max damage almost every shot. Overall, this alteration is probably the best one that you can get for crystals, and it's a very powerful alteration, and that's why it's going to be in the slot. The 4th best Hammer alteration is going to be the Jamming Shot alteration. Now this alteration alone in normal matchmaking battles would not be this high, but since it's very helpful for gold events, being able to shut down a lot of the overpowered overdrives, it's a lot more useful than a lot of the other alterations. I don't have much else to say about this alteration. Overall, it's good for both gold events and normal matchmaking, which is why it's going to be number 4. We're now in the top 3 alterations for Hammer. Now, you guys may notice by the end of the video, I'm not putting in the Wyvern's Breath, which is basically cryo rounds, just because this one is very lackluster. There's not a ton to it, which is why I'm just not going to put it on this list. The 3rd best alteration is going to be the Armor Piercing Shot. Now the biggest drawback with this alteration is that if you hit someone with it on your last shot, you're going to have to wait around half of the time that status effect is active to actually be able to shoot them again. Overall, this alteration is very beneficial when you're versing someone with a lot of supplies, and it's a good alteration altogether. The number 2 spot is going to go to stun rounds. Now if you know how to use this alteration, it's probably either number 1 or number 2. It's hard to distinguish between the two because they're both so good. Now stun rounds works where the last shot of each of your clips will stun the player. So if you spawn and you shoot 2 bullets, that third bullet will always stun the other players. And it can stun more than one depending on how many people you hit. If you learn how to use this alteration is very deadly, and it's a great alteration to use for hammer. And that's why it's going to be our number 2 spot. Now the number 1 spot for the best alteration for hammer is going to be magnetic pellets. Now this alteration is super hard to get. You can only get this alteration from an exotic drop in a container. So it's either pay to get it or get super lucky with completing the weekly or special missions. Now these rounds work a lot like the stun rounds, where the third shot of every clip will take everyone's supplies away. The best part about these number 4 alterations is that not many people have protections against them. Magnetic pellets will take away everyone's supplies, and then they will basically be dead within the next 1 to 2 shots. So overall, that's going to be why magnetic pellets goes into the number 1 spot. I hope you enjoyed this rankings video. Hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace out.